Greetings from IAS in the Philippines. We want to welcome you to our program, Unite in Diversity. We want to thank those of you who are watching us online and those who are watching on videos. Thank you for making time to listen to this very exciting conversation that we have about the taboos in health. We want to start with a disclaimer that views expressed on this program are simply opinions of the participants. They do not reflect IAS. And therefore, if you have questions or opinions or suggestions, please send them to us. Do not send them to IAS. We'll be sharing with you the email address of our program so that you can communicate with us. I have invited health professionals from around the world to share with us a few taboos and how to deal with taboos in the health professions. And I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves to us. I'm going to start on my left there and then end with this side. Please tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you're doing here.
My name is Pukar, and I'm from Nepal, and I'm taking public health in master's here.
It's interesting. I didn't know you were from Nepal. I thought you were from Bangladesh or Sri Lanka. This is the first time, and you have been in my class. This is very, very humiliating.
But I have introduced myself in the class as well from Nepal.
All right. That is very, very, when you have a large class, sometimes I ask people to introduce themselves within small groups, with the group discussions, and I'm not able to catch all the countries. Now, I promise I'm not going to forget anymore. Welcome, Pukar.
Good afternoon, Dr. Safari. My name is Luis Rivera. I'm from Peru. I'm studying the Master in Public Health. Yes.
Welcome. And I understand you're a medical doctor.
Yes.
How long have you been doing that?
I spent around 2 years.
Oh, 2 years before you came here.
Yes.
All right. Welcome, Dr. Luis. We are very, very glad that you have traveled all the way from Peru to be with us here at IAS. Let's go to the right side. We have been with Dr. Liza on another show, but we are on a thesis committee together on a topic that is coming today. And so I felt it is just proper to bring her back because I think she will be the expert on that topic. And I want to tell you what it is, but when we get there, you will know. Her expertise will come up. Please introduce yourself again to us.
I'm Alaisa Mbiriri. I'm a Malawian born and raised in Zimbabwe. I'm teaching in the public health department.
Malawian, born and raised in Zimbabwe, working in the Philippines. Talk about globalization. Welcome back, Dr. Alaisa. Yes.
My name is Carrie Beats, and I am officially retired, but as a ministry, I still do some work as a health educator in different countries. I am here at IS as part of a family unit. I am not currently taking classes.
Welcome to our program, Dr. Carey. We are very glad that you're here. I have had some conversations, interesting conversation, just one-on-one with you, and I couldn't just keep that to just the two of us, and so I'm so glad that you have agreed to be with us today. Let's go to our first question. What are some of the taboos that affect health in your country? I'm going to start with Dr. Liza. And you can pick Malawi or Zimbabwe. That's fine. You pick one of the two.
Okay, thank you. Actually, they share almost similar things, but I'll talk about two, one which affects positively and one which has a negative impact. The one which has a positive impact is the issue of totems. In Zimbabwe, there are totems which are like tribal identity marks or branding of a tribe. So the taboo there is they should not be intermarriages between people of the same tribe or the same totem.
Hold on. Explain a little further what is a totem, because many people come from cultures where that word is not, they don't even know what it means. It's not in the dictionary.
Okay. A totem is an identity animal or feature that is used to identify a certain tribe. Okay. So you can have, for example, my tribe, you are represented by the zebra. Okay. So if anyone who is this zebra totem, if I meet someone who is a zebra totem, automatically that person becomes my sister or my brother. If that person is older than me, that person becomes my father or mother. So if I meet someone who has a totem similar to my mother, that person becomes my mother or becomes my uncle.
How do you know my totem? Do I announce it when I greet you, or do you have a tattoo on the forehead or something?
The totems, they are passed down in families. When my daughter was born, she knows, or when we are greeting her, she's a mamoyo. Like that's the totem for my husband. You get a totem from your father. So when I'm calling my son, I can call him as Moyo, representing the totem. So if my son is to get married, he cannot marry someone from the Moyo totem. So this was done to reduce chances of hereditary diseases. So you'll find in the British royal family, they had issues with hemophilia, a genetic disease because of intermarriages. So the time that I did biology in high school, when we were learning about this genetic disease and the royal family, one thing which clicked in me is in Zimbabwe, there are no intermarriages if you are of the same totem. Of course, nowadays people can marry from the same totem, but back then, or still some people practice that. If you really, really want to marry that person, there are some traditional processes that are done, but it will not evade you from having the hereditary diseases. But it's something which has a positive impact on passing on of
That's definitely a
genetic
positive
diseases.
one. Let's go to the negative one now.
The negative one, maybe I'll think about the issues of sexuality. Looking at, it's almost, there's no open communication, or it's a taboo to be speaking about sexuality, even between husband and wife. So looking at the plight of HIV in Southern Africa, you find that health researchers, they say HIV is a face of a woman because there are many women, in terms of percentage, many women than compared to men who have HIV in Southern Africa. So you find that women are not in a position to discuss about these issues. Even if a man is promiscuous, a woman cannot negotiate issues of safe sex with the husband. So the husband can roam around, and the woman knows that this man has been sleeping around, or even if it's known that they are in a polygamous relationship, it has been made known to everyone. The man has 5 wives, is acceptable in the culture, but still the woman cannot negotiate safe sex. So it has spread HIV that much. I mean, there are things that have been done, of course, trying to have certain rings that can be inserted in the woman that cannot be seen by the men to avoid the prevention of HIV. But a woman, you cannot ask your husband to use, to use a condom. So it's difficult.
That, I think you have hit a very important point here. You know, we see the statistics of HIV/AIDS going way from bad to worse in that region of Africa. And for us looking at this from outside, it's like, what's going on? But it's actually integrated in the culture, into the taboos. This is a taboo topic. We cannot talk about it. Okay, let's go to the far end of this, from Africa to Latin America. What are some of the taboos? Just give us one. We'll just get one from each.
Okay, first, let me know that even when I was born in Peru, I spent many years of my life in Argentina.
You know, this is a common thing I've heard from people who come from Latin America. It's like, you know, I'm from this country, but I live the most of the times, and I think it's a common thing. People travel around there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I want to tell you that, you know, the medical doctors in Argentina read the same articles that read other medical doctors around the world. So there are many research which propose to avoid to eat the meat and also the liver. However, in Argentina, the physician encouraged the patients to eat the meat and even more to eat the liver. And you know the liver is the organ who synthesized all the toxins in our body, and not only in the human being but also in the animals. So when you have a child, you need to provide to him and feed him with liver or with meat when they are also like babies.
Wow.
And you cannot tell against that position to the physician, even when they know about that.
And nobody changes that because it's just a taboo. It's like, everybody believes that and that's what they do all the time. So, okay, all right. Let's go to Dr. Kerry, please.
Yes, HIV and AIDS is a issue in our country, but I'll move on to a different one that we haven't touched on yet, and that is postpartum depression. In the U.S., you rarely hear of anybody having it, though it's actually fairly common, and it's very rare to ever hear a woman say that she has it. I think part of that comes from a lot of times the woman doesn't realize that the symptoms necessarily are depression symptoms, but once they get the diagnosis, it's just not something you admit to. And so it makes it very, very hard for them.
I have personally met a number of people who were going through this, but they were in denial. They thought it was just, it's because I'm just busy and things, but actually what was happening was postpartum depression or experience that they were going through. And it is strange because you think that in the United States, people should be able to address this very, very easily, but obviously not. Let's go to Nepal.
I think Nepal has a lot of taboos, if we talk about taboo, because we are a mixed group from origin of Nepal, like we are people from Indo, Nepal border, and then again towards the north from China, the Tibet side, and the indigenous people. So, and also we are culturally very diverse. We have a lot of caste and many people. So each culture have their own taboos. But generally, if I have to talk about a taboo that has become an issue throughout the whole country is about menstruation in women. So especially in the far western region of Nepal, when the women have menstruation, they have to stay away from home for 5 days. There is a special hut that is made 30 to 40 meters away from a main house. So the woman has to stay in that house where there is no sunlight, nothing. She cannot see any male person from a house. So that whether it is a son or whether it is a husband. Because if she would see any male from a house, or if any male from a house would just see her, then some bad luck will happen to them. They will have some serious issues with the house or with the physical body, and they cannot drink milk. If they will drink milk, then the buffaloes maybe will fly, or they will climb the trees, or something like this, very superstitious thing. And so they have to stay in this small hut, which does not have light, no proper ventilation, and they are supposed to stay there for 5 days. And when somebody goes to give them food, then only the ladies has to go there, and they will just drop a food from far away, or from a distance. They cannot even touch. So they are treated like an animal. So this is a issue in a whole country.
Is this something that is also done in Adventist circles?
Yes, actually, though we are Adventists, culturally we are still bound, and we still have a cultural influence. So if any woman disclose now, here if the women have a menstruation, or if they have a period, they can sit with the husband, they can sit with the friend, wearing the sanitary pad. But in Nepal, if they disclose that they have a menstruation period, they cannot sit in a common place like this. They cannot do the rituals in the house, they cannot worship, they cannot cook, they cannot go into the kitchen.
And they can't go to school.
They cannot
go to the
school.
market.
Yes. So if people know that she is having a period, then they will kind of abstain in touching to her or just having a contact with her.
Well, I wish we had a theologian with us here to try to understand this. Are they using the Old Testament rituals and everything? But we don't have a theologian here. We're going to go to the next question, and I will ask Dr. Laisa to be the last one to speak on this one because she might have more experience from patients who have gone through this in her countries than most of us. I'm going to start with Dr. Kerry. What is your opinion on female genital mutilation? This is a phenomenon that is still happening. Would you say more on the African continent than maybe most other continents? And I think we all know what it means. If you don't know what it means, please go to Google. But we're going to address this question.
Coming from the United States, where you don't have female genital mutilation, and assuming that the Lord knew what he was doing when he designed us, I would think that we're at our optimum the way God designed us, and so I don't see a reason for it.
Medically, is this something that has problems or not?
You mean if it's done to somebody?
Yes.
Yes, there can be quite a few problems.
Can you share with us just a few of them?
Well, my sister here can probably do a better job of that because she's more familiar. But when you start removing a number of parts, you start interfering with the way the body works. And you also cause a lot of scarring. And so scarring also causes issues medically. There's, especially the way my understanding is that it's done in a lot of countries, it sets you up for infection, it sets you up for excessive bleeding, and so forth down the line. So it's not done hygienically. And to what extent it's done seems to vary quite a bit. And so those are all generalities, but I don't see that anyway that it's good. And you could potentially have sufficient scarring that it might even make sexual relations difficult once the woman is an adult. Just because scars are not flexible, they're not elastic, they don't give, that kind of thing, as well as when they remove the clitoris, it takes away a lot of the pleasure that comes with sex. And so it sort of becomes like, well, what's the point?
You know, I have a student who's writing a paper on this specific issue right now. And I was shocked when I read one paragraph where she said, and this specific country that I want to mention, as high as 70% of women have gone through female genital mutilation. I thought this was something that is done usually in extremely remote places where it's a minority, maybe a small tribal group that is doing this, maybe 1%, but it was shocking to me.
It's usually the norm, and the interesting thing is that the women who have experienced it, even though it was terrifying for them, they are divided. Some say no, absolutely should never be done, and others are proponents.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Gentlemen, you have something to say about this? Either one?
Yes. I totally disagree with that practice for two main reasons. First, that practice doesn't help the woman to be better, talking about health, in comparison with other women. And the second reason is that it has many health problems, such as persistent bleeding, infections, urination problems, and pregnancy problems, and even worse, the death. So I totally disagree with that practice.
Okay. Pukar?
I think that is more of a physical torture. Like when before I came to Philippines and before I took class on maternal health, I hardly knew on this topic about the female genital mutilation. And then like as I took the class on maternal health and like when the topic came about this, and then it was bone chilling experience to me. Like how could this happen? Like how would even they tolerate when they had to go through all these processes, and then the like it depends on the time of a year. I think like when it is summer, there is a high probability of infection, and then when it is winter, maybe throughout the time period also. So I was just thinking it's a mental torture, not only a physical torture, but it's also a mental torture to a woman that will remain within her throughout the lifetime, and it will just enable her in many ways, like why I had to go through this process. I mean, like when it is natural for me to have this certain organ or a part in my body, so why it has to be treated in this way? So I could not imagine like what she would just go through when she would just have to face this issue or this challenge.
Thank you so much. I think all of us right now, it's like a lot of thought is going on in the mind. And some of our sisters who are in this audience right now and those who are watching probably have never experienced that. You will never experience it. It is something that is culturally strong. And in some cultures, if you do not go through that, it's like you are not valued. I want to believe that some people may not even get married. I talked to somebody who came from a country where it is practiced. She said, she was a PhD student. She said, actually, if you didn't go through that and men know about that, your chance of getting married are actually slow. It is beyond me. Let's hear from, hopefully you have had some patients who have gone through that, who have related to you some experiences.
To me, female genital mutilation is more of a violation of a human right, because everyone has the right, maybe I can say, to enjoy sex. So when females get their genitals mutilated for whatever reasons that are given, because there are different reasons in different regions, but the thing that they are denying these females is the right to enjoy. And it has no health benefit at all. And adding on to what has been shared, in Zimbabwe, what is practiced is not mutilation, but is elongation. So to some people in Zimbabwe who strongly believe in this, I mean, they still practice it. It will be like you are not a full woman if you do not have your genitals elongated. Or some, it may lead to divorce. So people still believe, there are people who still, I mean, I have some close friends of mine who strongly still believe in that. In Zimbabwe, it's elongation, it's not mutilation. So they strongly believe, and even when you attend like bridal showers, which are done by the church for a young girl who's about to, for a young woman who's about to get married, they put emphasis on this elongation of the female genitalia, and you are made to believe that if you do not have that, your husband will not be pleased by you. And so this is done in the way it is emphasized, it is done to please the husband, not for the woman. So the main, I think it only boils on to having a society which is male dominated. So these things are centered on pleasing the man. Where they do genital mutilation, it's so that this woman, you will not have sexual feelings, you will not have extramarital affairs, you will not indulge when you are young. So they say we want to preserve your purity. That's why we are cutting this. That's why you do not have to have any feelings. And where they practice elongation, it's so that your husband gets more excited and with you and pleasure with that. So it's not for the woman, but it's for the man.
From what we have heard from the four participants, I think we can agree on one thing, and that is there is no medical benefit in this practice. And I want to believe what Dr. Eliza has said. She took it to a much higher level. And I believe that this is actually against human rights. And as educated people, as church members, we really need to speak up against this practice. It doesn't matter. I know it is a cultural issue, and some cultures it's very, very important. But let's look at the humans, at our sisters first, and see there is no medical benefit in that, and it causes more medical issues to them. Let us address it. In our church circles, in our institutions, in our Adventist institutions, let us address this issue. Let's stop it. Let's speak up. It is a taboo, yes, but we need to bring it to the attention of everyone so that it can. We're going to go to another taboo here. Should male circumcision be required? We have had this discussion. I have met men from different countries. Some are for it, others are against it. It's like, where do we find the balance here? So let's look at it from health perspective. And we're going to start with the men. Should it be required? Yes or no? From health perspective.
Again, like talking about the male circumcision, maybe it's again a culture, and as well as like there are some medical reasons. There are times when there has to be a circumcision due to some factors, like when there is some infection in the area of the foreskin, when they have to just kind of like treat that problem, then maybe there is a required that like they had to go through the circumcision treatment process. But I don't think like it's the issue of salvation to anyone.
Definitely not.
So culturally, if people practice that, there are many health benefits to male circumcision. As I have just kind of studied, like what are the health benefits? I have found more of the health benefits than of the cons. So I believe like culturally, like it is not as severe as genital mutilation. So according to my opinion, I believe like people can make a choice to circumcise themselves, or it's not like mandatory.
Okay, all right. Let's go to Dr. Luis.
Thank you. In my opinion, male circumcision should not be required. According to many research, the main objective of male circumcision is to avoid some infections and also to prevent penis cancer. But according to many research, we can avoid infections through other ways. And also we can prevent penis cancer only with proper hygiene. So it's, in my opinion, it's not necessary to make this practice.
Okay, all right, all right. We have heard from the men. Let's go to the ladies. What do you think? Should be required or not? Let's start with you, Dr. Eliza.
Okay, I have one student who's writing his thesis on this topic. From the perspective of Southern Africa and HIV, male circumcision has been, there are so many randomized control studies that have been done on the benefits of male circumcision and HIV. It has been shown that it reduces chances of getting HIV maybe by around 60%.
60?
Yes, 60.
Wow.
At least according to these RCTs that have been done. However, there are studies that have been done after these RCTs, which were done in Zimbabwe, which showed no benefit, like comparing those who are circumcised and not circumcised. So it would be, when you're looking at HIV, what happens when someone gets circumcised? Their when you remove this foreskin, what remains would be hard, and it will not easily get abrased, because for HIV to be transmitted, you need to have an opening for HIV to be transmitted. So when this is removed, the foreskin is removed, the organ becomes hard and cannot be easily bruised. That's why the HIV cannot easily go inside. So in looking at that, coming from that health benefit, you can say that it has a benefit. But for me, when I'm trying to look at this question number 3, female genital mutilation, this circumcision is still mutilation. So if you are talking about not wanting female genital mutilation, and so still male circumcision, it's still mutilation of the male organ. So we may need to be balanced, because when you are looking at, in Southern Africa, even though they've promoted male circumcision, this is adult male circumcision, which is being promoted, it has not reduced unfaithfulness. So people still continue to be unfaithful, and they are not using protection because they are saying we are circumcised, because they have been promoting circumcision as you reduce your chances of getting HIV. So now they do not want to use protection. They continue being unfaithful. They continue being promiscuous. So it increases the HIV transmission. So it could be coming, if we were to say it's actually complicated, but it may be a personal decision. So if you are talking about HIV cannot be 100% protected by circumcision. It's an issue of faithfulness.
Correct. Wow. That's quite a lot to think about. Let's go to Dr. Carey from the United States perspective.
From the United States perspective, it's done a lot automatically in hospitals on newborns, unless the parents specifically request that it's not done. From my perspective, it appears that, yes, there's some cultural influence, but I think, at least in the United States, more strongly, it's a faith-based influence. You're Jewish, and many of your Christian denominations are very pro. And when you start getting into other religions, they don't see a reason for it. So there's pros and cons to everything, and there are some, as Dr. Eliza has already mentioned, to getting circumcision. I can tell you that I have witnessed them in the intensive care nursery, in the premature nursery, when I was up there, when I worked at Stanford University Hospital for the nursery. And I was actually kind of shocked how they did it. And they literally would take a small safety pin and they would pin through the foreskin on the baby on one side. Wow. And they would leave it until the foreskin swelled up and turned blue. Ooh. And that indicated that there was a change in the circulation, and then they would go through and they would cut. And they didn't use any anesthesia. Mm-hmm. And this is a newborn baby. It's like, wow. So that put a whole different perspective for me on it.
Correct. Okay. I think what we have learned from this specific question, we're going to take just one more because we have 5 more minutes, is that there are certain medical benefits on male circumcision. And we need to try, if we want to look at it from the non-anesthesia practice and the practice in South Africa, for example, where people will go and you have to survive there, and some people actually die in the process, and that is on the thesis we're on it together with Dr. Eliza. These practices really need to be abolished because they are there to cause pain primarily, to see how you can survive. That's what qualifies you as a man. If you do not, you cannot feel the pain and you cannot survive this infection, then you're no good to be called a man. But if it is for the purposes of medical purposes, like what we heard from this side, then I think it's something we should encourage. We're going to make this our last question Today, is it proper to give comprehensive sex education in Adventist schools? Yes or no? And please explain. You'll have about 45 seconds each, and I'm going to start with Dr. Beats, and then we'll go to this side.
I think it depends on what you defined as comprehensive.
I thought nobody will pick on that, but whatever your definition is.
Coming from the United States, and when I was in 5th and 6th grade, we had basic sex education, but it was on learning that you were going to get breasts and that you would start getting menstrual periods and that bodies also went through changes. Nowadays, when I look at what's going on, in particular in some of the schools in California, where in kindergarten they are giving sex education and they are also telling the children, if you feel like being a boy today, that's fine, and if tomorrow or next week you want to be a girl, that's okay. And so there's this massive confusion of genders that is beginning to happen, and they're almost railroading the kids into having sex change operations and things like that as children.
Okay, let's remove the gender and homosexuality, transgenderism in that one. So, sex education, should we have it in Adventist schools?
Yes, I believe that we should have some sex education in our schools. I feel like it is still the SDA responsibility to put forth God's plan for human sexuality.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, if we are looking at it, excluding these issues of LGBTQ, I think a comprehensive sex education is necessary in our schools. Looking at the way information is now available for our children. You see, my son can easily go to YouTube, look for things and like that. So if they are getting proper education in our Adventist schools, which guides them to what Dr. Carey has said about the God's way of sexuality, I think it will help our young children, our young people, to stick to what God wants.
Thank you so much. Next.
I think it is very important because this is one of the taboo, like in many of the countries, to talk about the sex education or anything related to the sex in the schools. Like I can still remember, like when we had to learn about the reproductive organs in the body or reproductive system. Then like there used to be a separate class for male and separate class for female, because it was something like you cannot openly discuss. So I believe like this is very much important because as in the human life there are different stages, and according to the stage there are like changes in the body, in our different parts of our body, and like within that changes there is also a mental change. I mean like why it is happening. So all those questions arises in a child as he grows on. So if we do not address them, this is natural, and like this is what you will just face, or this is what you will experience like in a few years from now. And like since we are designed to have children, or we are given the reproductive organs, so I think it is necessary for us to help children or anyone to know that not to abuse that, but at the same time to help them to understand this is important, but like how to understand all these changes and everything. So in order for him not to just go to something that can land him to somewhere that like maybe which is unsafe, or like into that area like where he feels like maybe like he is doing some crime. So I think this information and this education is important.
Thank you so much. 30 seconds.
Yes, sure. As Adventists, we believe that God creates the sexuality. So we must teach the sexuality to our children in our Adventist schools. So if we don't teach them about the proper sexuality, probably they will receive information from bad sources.
Thank you so much. We want to thank the four of you for sharing your expertise with us. We have been enlightened, And let us go and try to change a few practices that are negatively affecting our health, and try to promote the healthy practices so that as Adventists, as scholars, as educators, we can all be in good health. If you have questions or suggestions, please email us at united@ias.edu. We are so glad that you have been with us today. Until we meet again in the next program, we want to encourage you to remain united in diversity.